Well, it's Monday afternoon, August 5, 2024. I'm Todd Dunn, and today I'm aboard my Allied Princess 36 Sequester, and I'm going to begin a little project. Today's project is in two parts, replace the Mizzen sheet, which you can see down there. The reason I'm replacing it is, that is the sheet that was on the boat when we bought it in 1996. So that sheet is a minimum of 28 years old, and I bought a nice piece of new line to replace that with. So what I have to do today is take that off and tie the boom off with another line, and once I get that other line on there, we will take the sheet off and be set to replace it. And the only trick about it is that it is spliced to a becket on that lower block in such a way that you cannot easily do it. You have to do the splice in place because the becket is riveted to the block rather than having a pin that you could replace. So I'm going to have to cut that rope off and splice the new one on. So I'm going to take it home to do that, just because I have better information about the splicing instructions at home. I don't do enough to remember them exactly. And then the other part of the task is to replace the upper part of that topping lift. But that involves going up the mast because it is, again, spliced to an eye on the top of the mast. I may change that by putting a turning block at the top of the mast and running that topping lift all the way down to the boom, and just bringing the line down the mast to a cleat, so that I can run the topping lift up and down from the mast without taking the sail cover off. Right now I do have to take the sail cover off to change the setting on the topping lift. Okay, so I'm going to get that sheet off of there. It just involves taking a couple pins out. And then once I've done that, I am going to tie a temporary line onto the boom, so that it will not flop around, and hopefully I'll have all this done by tomorrow. Okay, there's the sheet for the mizzen mast, and where I have to splice the new line on is back here on this becket, which is riveted on. So unless I want to drill the rivet out and replace it, I have to do the splice in place. And it's pretty simple. Just do the splice, reeve the new line through the blocks. I thought about buying new blocks, but those blocks are not cheap. That pair right there is about $150, or maybe a little more depending on the brand I buy. So I'm going to continue to use the blocks because they're in okay shape, and I'm just going to change out the line. So that line is probably, I'd guess it dates from 1987, when the previous owners bought the boat. So it's closing in on 40 years old, and I think it's time to replace it. And as I said, I have the new line in my truck. And over here, I've got my fids to do the splice, which I keep on the boat. I'm going to take them home right now, and we will do that splice and then bring this line back and reinstall it. And I have to do that before Wednesday, because that's when my wife wants to go sailing the next time. Okay, so I'm going to take this home and do the splice up. Well, it's the next day now, August 6th, and last night I spliced on the new line. Hardest part was reeving the line through the blocks without getting it twisted and getting the right amount of line cut off. It runs very freely now, much better than it did, which is going to make the sheet easier to use. And I'm pretty happy with it. I did downsize the line from 3/8 to 5/16, but I doubt that's going to make a difference in a 4-to-1 purchase on this 100 square foot sale. I didn't show the splice because I hadn't done one for 3 or 4 years, and I was a little rusty, had to look it up, and I thought, well, I'll just put it back on and that will be that. So there we go. Now the next step is to replace the lower part of the topping lift that goes up to that block up there and comes down to the boom. The only issue with that is that I have to work standing up on the bulwark, and there's just too much chance that I'm going to drop something over the side when I disconnect that, and then I also have to run a line down to hold the boom up while I'm splicing a new line onto that block, onto the becket up there. So I'm going to wait until the end of the season when I've got the boom off and I can do that up down here in the cockpit, where it'll be much easier to reach, and also if I drop something, it'll just go into the cockpit rather than over the side, and I won't have to go buy a new shackle or anything like that. So we'll wait on that, and then once the mast is down, I'll replace the upper part of that topping lift, and we'll have all new line. I've got enough line to do that. That splice last night did take me a few minutes. I haven't done one for maybe 3 or 4 years, so I was a little rusty. I actually had to look up the procedure, which isn't that complicated. As soon as I saw it, it came right back. But, you know, when you don't do something like that regularly, it does kind of become a little rusty, and you need to check to make sure you're doing it right. Anyway, it came out well, considering that it was an eye splice through a captive becket on the block, which meant that I had to work through the becket while I was doing the splice. But, you know, that made it a little more difficult than just a freestanding eye, but came out well anyway, and I'm happy with it. And, as I said, that new line looks a lot better than the old line that was on there, that I figure is at least 47 years old. Probably just about due for replacement. So that was just another quick little project here on Sequester, and we'll get a few more done this year. I'm gradually replacing all of my running rigging. The only things I have left really at this point, other than the topping lift on the Mizzen here, is to do the main halyard, which I haven't been in a big rush to do because, as you know, I don't even have the main boom on the boat. But the halyard could stand to be replaced. So anyway, I'll put a new one on one of these days, and then we'll have pretty much all new standing rigging when I get done. Over the last 3 to 4 years, I've replaced both the jib and mizzen halyards, and pretty much everything else. So anyway, she's looking good. Thanks for watching.